to do them. So today, sorry about that quick blood, we're talking about AI defense guardrails. So basically AI security. I just did a video yesterday about AI security. Now let's talk about the guardrails that we're putting in place for AI security. And if you are here with me live, just hit me up, say what's up in the chat. I got the chat right over here so I can see if you say something. So let's go with that. So AI defense guardrails, what are they? Basically, these are the things that we want to implement to guard our AI knowledge base implementation environment solution, right? So everything is usually about people, processes, and technology. So in this case, this is AI, which is a technology, right? And we want to protect that technology and the confidentiality of it, of the data, the integrity, and availability. If you know anything about security, it's always about those three things. All right. So let's go ahead and talk about the key components of AI defense guardrails. And so when I say AI defense guardrails, I'm really just talking about security, right? But it goes a little bit further than just the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. But there's some other things that AI has going on with it that you have to have guardrails against those things. So we try and not use security and the guardrails at the same time. Hey, Tangi, I see you with me live. I appreciate that. So we try to talk about, use those words, security and guardrails, interchangeably, but then they're separate, okay? Because security is usually all about the technology, people, and processes. This is has a little bit more going on for it. So let's talk about the security guardrails, adversarial attack mitigation. So we want to mitigate the possibility of hackers attacking your AI environment. Data integrity. So we want to make sure that data that's in your knowledge base is exactly what it should be. So if you have a certain prompt or definition how things should act within your AI implementation, that it stays that way and that it is not corrupted. Access control. Who has access to make changes to it or even use it, right? And system hardening. That's basically putting all the controls around it in place to make sure it is as secure as possible. All right. Also, ethical and bias guardrails. So we want to make sure that, as it relates to ethics and what it gives out, the information that it gives out, that it is actually not harming anyone. The information that's being sent out is not harming anyone. So you don't want someone to put in it how to make a bomb, right? And it gives you the instructions. So that's the ethical aspect of it. And the bias aspect of it as well. If you say something like draw a picture of a guy with a lot of money and only certain type of individuals come out of that picture, that would be like a bias detection when you see something like that. So you want to have audits and things of that nature in place to make sure that you don't have bias in your system, which is really hard because we as humans, we're the ones putting the knowledge in. So if we have certain bias routines or certain bias, within us, when we put the information in, it may just creep in there, right? So inclusive design, same thing. So we just want to make sure that it's not geared to just one group or, it's male dominated or, Caucasians or just African Americans or just whatever. You want to make sure the design is inclusive for everyone to be able to use, right? All right, so now operational guardrails. We want to monitor the model. We also want to have a recovery plan, so in case something does go wrong. And scalability. You need for it to be able to grow, right? And it's not here yet, but compliance regulations for AI, you want to adhere to all of those things, which should include privacy, right? It should include auditing at least every year, possibly every 6 months, or when there's a major change in the system. All right, and I spent way too much time on that. Usually I like to make these videos short and quick and to the point, but yeah, I'm going a little bit longer than usual on this video because I think it's really important, right? So safeguarding AI in action. So these are some examples. So in cybersecurity, you want to protect the AI systems from being exploited by attackers and prevent AI from generating harmful content or code. So one thing about AI is that it can create code, right? So if you type in it, write the pro. I should probably do that. Maybe on one of these other videos. You tell it to write, some code for, like, what I did was I said, give me the code for a Pac-Man game, and it wrote out the code. I implemented it, and it was a Pac-Man game. Had a couple of little flaws, but I mean, it was really good for a first draft of code. And I'm not a real coder, right? So now some attackers, hackers, can ask it to create malware, to write code for malware or viruses. So you want to guard against it being able to do that. And that's part of the whole ethical aspect of it as well. Healthcare systems. You want to ensure medical AI systems provide safe, unbiased, and accurate recommendations to improve patient care. So if you're going to use this to get information about your health, and if it's giving you advice, it should be accurate. It should be unbiased. If doctors are using it to get information, it should be accurate. It should be unbiased. So this is just an example. These are just examples. Autonomous systems. So self-driving cars, right? You want to make sure that it has as many fail-safes as possible, right? And moderation. Consider this. Always monitoring and making sure it's not used too much, right? You want to make sure that the information is accurate. You want to make sure that it is trustworthy, but also moderation. You want to make sure it is not being overused, right? So that's a whole new concept for us, because most of the time you just want to use technology as much as possible. All right, so now implementing AI defense guardrails, a three-pronged approach. So what does that mean? That means you're going to start, you're going to do something before you implement it. You're going to have certain guardrails while it's running. And then after you put it in, what are you going to do to maintain it? So it's like having a car. Before you get a car, maybe you clean out your garage. Then while you're driving the car, you make sure it stays maintained. You put gas in it. And then even after you've had the car for a while, you take it into the shop every 3 months or 10,000 miles or however many miles for your oil change. Same thing with AI. You want to first, before you even deploy it, you should have a pre-deployment phase or pre-prod or dev phase where you are testing it. And you also have the red team tested. So I've done videos about blue team, red team. Red team are the testers, the hackers that are on your side, that are going to stress it to make sure that it keeps the confidentiality, integrity, and availability, right? Also, you're going to test it for bias audits. So you do all of this first. You test it. Okay, so now it's validated. Now you want to actually deploy it. It's passed all your QA tests. You want to actually deploy it. It's in prod. So what do you do while it's in prod? You want to monitor it real time for inputs and outputs, because there's this thing called SQL injection. So you can do SQL injection inside of ChatGPT. You can put in a SQL code or a SQL program or SQL statements, SQL injections, basically typing in where you type in your question, you can type in a SQL command. That's the word I was looking for. You can type in a SQL command, and it can actually do damage to the AI if it's not set up correctly. And you would know that when you do your test. But you still want to monitor for those type of things. You want to prevent it from being overused, like I mentioned previously. You may not, I know this has already happened to me more than once, where I'm just banging away things, bam, 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 and I'm asking, I'm doing this, I need that. Now do this to these numbers, do that. Create this graph, do this. And then after a while, it'll say, hey, man, slow down, relax, chill, we'll come back in 5 minutes. Also, I'm talking about automated shutoff mechanisms for high-risk operations. So a high-risk operation would be something that is not quite stable in the output of what it's giving you, right? So it could cause a system to lock up. So in that case, it would shut off versus locking up a system. Maybe it'll say come back later or something of that nature. And then post-deployment strategies, basically you want to make sure you audit this thing throughout the course of you using it. continuous monitoring, auditing against certain, security controls and guardrails like we're talking about, and also updating it for vulnerabilities to address certain vulnerabilities that come out. Because what will happen is that we will find a vulnerability and then we will have a patch for that vulnerability. Okay. So in your business, these are the type of things you want to think about. When I talk to you about, what you want to implement, I'm going to go through some of these things. Now, you may have a simple implementation that says, hey, Ron, I just want to use OpenChatGPT. I don't know how to use it. I don't know what we can do with it. Just come in and help us. And that's a little more simple, right? But you may have a large enterprise. You may want your own private, a large language model, which is your AI system, for lack of a better term. And you may want to have a cluster of them working together, different agents working together to accomplish multiple things. So that's a little bit different. And so then we would definitely have to go through these things that we're talking about right now. So navigating the challenges of implementing AI defense guardrails. It is complex, like the things I'm talking about. The landscape changes. So there's going to always have that need of updating. It's going to always need to be updated because different things are just going to change. And one thing that changes a lot is the information that goes in it. So right now, the knowledge base, the world's knowledge base, for the most part, has been mapped. There are maybe 5, 6 good models out there. They've mapped it all, and the differences between them are very minute, right? But what changes when the world changes, those things change. So then the knowledge base changes. And so now the threat is always going, just like that changes, the threat to it is going to change. The threats are going to change as well because hackers are going to always continue to bang on this thing until they make it break. When they make it break, then they try to find their way in. And now this is a vulnerability. Now that vulnerability should be published, but many times they aren't because people want an advantage. I could talk about this kind of stuff all day. Balancing innovation and safety. Yep, that's pretty tough to do when you're trying to be first to market and when you're trying to make something work, right? But how do you balance that with safety? That means you have to test. So you make sure you keep your tests rigorous. Make sure you continue to test and don't put aside the testing for being first to market. All right. And the future. What does the future look like with guardrails, right? So AI-driven guardrails. So we're talking about having guardrails for AI. Now we're going to use AI to implement and monitor these guardrails. So we're going to leverage AI to do that kind of stuff. To AI for security, AI for implementing standards, operational standards, being proactive, and adapting the system. So when AI sees something, it can change itself to now block the new threat. Standardizing. Right now, things are not quite standardized as it relates to AI security and AI guardrails, but there are some products out there that are looking to do this. And one of them, I told you at some point I will do a demo on it. It's called AI Defense, and I really like it. And the other thing, collaborative development. People like you, me, we need to collaborate on these things, talk about these things. That's why I make the videos. Talk about these things and make sure that we actually adhere to what we're preaching in the enterprises we work with. Okay? So we don't cut corners. We put up these guardrails. We test, and we implement monitoring. We implement auditing. We implement adapting. All of these type of things that we need to do, we actually collaborate on what should be done and then do them. All right. So that's pretty much it for this presentation. I just want to make sure that we clearly communicate the AI's capability, right? We need to be able to trust it and what it can't do. The problems that do exist, like hallucination. Sometimes AI will just make up an answer, and it says it confidently as well, right? But you want to make sure that you validate what's coming from it. User training. Educate people on how to interact with AI systems effectively and securely. feedback loops, allowing users to report issues. That's really important. I just talked about collaboration. We also need a way for people to give us information when things aren't quite working correctly. Right? Does that sound good? Does that sound like something we can do? We can do this, everybody. So I appreciate you all taking time out today to listen to this presentation, AI Defense Guardrails. So this is how we become responsible with AI. If you have any questions, make sure you find me online. You can leave comments here, and I enjoy doing this. So make sure you hit me up, find me, email me, call me. I'm everywhere. Ron Wilkie, your AI quarterback. See you later.